These still images were captured with Sony's A9 mirrorless camera at 20 frames per second using the electronic shutter. Now that gives us zero blackout, so we can easily track our subjects and making sure that we get that decisive moment.
Hi, I'm Mark Gaylor, Sony Alpha Ambassador for Australia. I have here the full-frame A9 mirrorless camera. This is perhaps one of Sony's boldest moves yet in the mirrorless market. It's not just trying to catch up with DSLR technology, it's basically surpassing it. And what's made this possible is the 24 megapixel stacked CMOS sensor inside of this camera. It gives us that 20 frames per second, but also using the electronic shutter, it's giving us zero blackout. Now, Sony have combined this with 693 on-sensor phase detect autofocus points. And what that basically means is if we can keep the subject in the viewfinder, this camera will track it. And because there's zero blackout, we have basically a very easy task just to follow that subject around, ensuring that we get the decisive moment or moments. Now this is a new body design as well, but it looks pretty much identical in size and shape to the A7 cameras. Now we do have some great new features on this camera. However, we have basically a drive mode button on this left hand side along with a focus mode button, so we don't have to go into menus or function menus in order to access and change those settings. And this is going to make the sports photographer or wildlife photographers again an easy task. Now we've also got this new viewfinder. It's much brighter than previous electronic viewfinders, and this has given us a really enjoyable viewing experience. Now it's got a fast refresh rate, it's got a very high resolution, and so it's possibly, I've always felt that EVF's electronic viewfinders are superior to optical viewfinders because we get that what you see is what you get view with that information overlay as we're shooting. Now combine that with a very bright electronic viewfinder as well, with that fast refresh rate, and this is certainly superior, I feel, to the optical viewfinders that we find on the traditional DSLR cameras. Now Sony have also done some extra work on this camera. Although the physical size of the camera looks very much like the A7, we have basically a new battery design. Now this new battery design is basically giving us double the battery life the previous A7 cameras. Now you'll see measurements for shot rates that basically they measure them in hundreds of frames before we have to change the battery. But for sports photographers doing fast frame rates, you're likely to get over 2,000 frames per battery with this type of shooting experience. And I've had this camera for 72 hours now, and I've personally shot through 6,000 frames and just recharged the battery after each 2,000 frame shoot. Now we've got some a whole host of new features here as well. Some of them are just minor workings of the system. For instance, if we decide to shoot using the LCD panel instead of the electronic viewfinder, it doesn't matter how close I get to that body, it's not going to switch over to the electronic viewfinder, and that just happens without having to go into any menus and set that up. Now Sony have also combined this with this great new 100 to 400 telephoto zoom, which is a G master lens, and it's absolutely pin sharp, even wide open, and that's given me a fabulous shooting experience. Now I'm posting frames as I talk, and you can see how great this camera is for photographers who decide to specialize in either action, sports, wildlife, etc. Now, don't consider this is an upgrade to an A7R Mark II or an A7S II. Those still have their place in Sony's lineup, but this is for photographers where the high frame count, the rugged build of this camera, just the viewing experience and shooting experience is really going to come as a great joy to people who primarily shoot in this genre. Okay, so I'll post some links to my blog post to give you an in-depth review of this camera, and also some links to galleries of 4K images captured just over a 72-hour period using this combination. Okay, so as I said, I've had this camera for a little more than 72 hours, and I've been really excited at what this camera is capable of. And this should certainly send some tremors out there in the professional image arena, and also the keen amateur arena. Basically, as I said when I opened this short review, this isn't just playing catch up to DSLR. This is basically overtaking DSLR technologies, and most of it rests basically in the new sensor design. This CMOS stack sensor is giving us great opportunities to extend image making for a broad range of photographers. I'm sure this won't be the last we see of this CMOS stack sensor design. I'm sure it's going to roll out into future cameras, and it's a very exciting era for Sony. Okay, I'm Mark Gaylor, Sony Alpha Ambassador for Australia.